Who else is contending for the national championship with Georgia this year? Three-peat on the way. But is that a lock? Is that a guarantee? Who else is looking to come up within the SEC as well as the national landscape and contend for college football playoff? We'll talk about who those people are, why Georgia has a great shot at three-peating, and is it natty or bust for Georgia? Is it a failure if we don't win? Next on Locked On Bulldogs.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody, to Locked On Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for making us your first listen as you are out there with us. If you're on YouTube, head over to the audio side, wherever you listen to podcasts, download, subscribe. If you're on the audio side, head over to YouTube and do the same exact thing. Helps your boys out a great deal. Daniel and I are going through this offseason as we are getting closer and closer every single day to kickoff, and we are talking about the Bulldogs and giving you some insights. We're going to be breaking down rosters. We're going to be doing a touchdown draft. Him and I are going to be drafting players that we think will have the most touchdowns this year for Georgia, doing a snake draft with each other. You can join on that as well and see which one of us selects the most Georgia Bulldogs that will go ahead and get the most touchdowns this year. We are going to be doing, like I said, roster breakdowns, position breakdowns, schedule breakdowns, preview all the way up. We got 3 weeks left, really in the throes of things before we are in earnest. Everything we got going. So stick with us. Glad to have you here. And like I said, glad for making us your first listen of the day. And thanks for the $1.99. If you're not part of the $1.99, hang on to loyal third segment listeners. You make it all the way to third segment. You're part of the $1.99. Bonfire.com/store/the $1.99. And we'll be doing that this coming week. So let's start with this. Who else is in contention for the national championship in college football playoff? Now, this is a really interesting conversation. I was just on with a whole bunch of Locked On hosts talking about who it might be that we can go ahead and get to maybe face Georgia in the college football playoff. Odds makers have the following for those of us who care about those things. I am one of those people that care about that a great deal. And it's really interesting who you have in here. Georgia is the odds-on favorite to win the national championship. And then here's how Vegas ranks it after that. Alabama is actually still in their second. Ohio State third. Alabama's got plus 600. Ohio State plus 700. Michigan plus 800. I'm going to get back to that here in a moment because the Michigan love that I saw on Locked On hosts was incredible. I'm gonna break down some good things that Michigan has going and some really bad things Michigan has going here in a moment. LSU plus 1,200, USC plus 1,400, Florida State plus 1,800, Clemson plus 1,800, Texas plus 2,000, Penn State 2,500, so on and so forth. I'm gonna break down of these teams who is abjectly not a contender. Let's start with who cannot say they are a college football playoff contender. They won't even sniff the top four. They won't even come close to it. Let me start by first saying, Tennessee fan, it's delusional to think that you are a college football playoff contender. You had a couple of days at number one. You got dethroned. You do not have the defense. You do not have the trenches. You might have the quarterback, question mark, and admittedly question mark for us as well. You might have receivers, question mark. You have an offensive coach. That much is bona fide truth, but you don't have any of the trenches. You don't have any of the defense. You play in the SEC. You play incredible teams. You will have 2 losses. You will not make the SEC championship. Tennessee, stop it. It's not going to happen. I'm so sorry for you. One contender, gone. Out of it. The second contender that I will go ahead and tell you is not anywhere close. Anybody from the Pac-12. Pac-12. Stop. You are all going to cannibalize yourselves. Washington, Oregon, and USC even. I mean, USC has the best shot out of everybody, but the Pac-12 is not going to have anybody. They're going to cannibalize each other. You have road games. Utah is going to go ahead and sneak up on a couple of these teams. I think Utah has an up and down year. They're a good team. I don't think they win the Pac-12, but I think they snake bite a couple of these teams. Okay, so Oregon, you have Bo Nix as your quarterback. When crunch time hits, it's going to be Bo, baby Bo, and that ain't good for anybody. Auburn knows, we know, SEC knows. So Oregon is out. And if you want to tell me that Oregon losing what they claimed were incredible defensive players that we manhandled last year. Manhandled. Just did not get a sniff of run against our offense. Couldn't get things going. Those were your best defensive guys, and you lose them. What does that say about your defense? You have Bo Nix. Dan Lanning's got a big task in front of him. I don't think Oregon comes out. USC, Lincoln Riley is a fraudulent coach. He's a fraudulent coach. He got ran out and he had to go to the West Coast and then had to come back from the West Coast back into what happened there? Lincoln Riley's back to playing teams that are closer to where he grew up and has an accent from. But he went to the West Coast because it's not the same style of football. Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA. Sorry, not sorry. You guys don't play ball like the rest of us do. It's just fact. You have an offense, but you don't care about defense. You don't care about the trenches. Do you see a theme happening here? USC is not a contender. Okay, so get that out of your head as well. They might be able to sneak up on a couple of teams because of their offense. They're going to have one of the best play callers, one of the best quarterbacks, one of the best players in all of college football, but they can't stop anybody. And so they're going to have to do shootouts every single time. And you get a team that gets you to force a punt here and there or a turnover here and there, you're in bad shape, USC. You might be able to score 43, but when you play another team that can score 45 or 48 and has a defense to stop you, and maybe you come down 7 points from your average and now you're in the mid-30s, and the other team that you don't care about stopping continues playing, you're in bad shape. I don't think USC is a contender as well. Let me tell you who else is in the mix for being a contender, and that is Florida State. I did not think I was going to be here talking about this. But the more I read, the more I listen, the more that I'm in tune. Florida State has something going. There's smoke there. I'm not saying that they are. I wouldn't put money on them. I'm not saying the odds are great. But, well, I actually am saying the odds are great because I think they are better than USC. USC is ahead of them. I think they're might be better than LSU because LSU, I think, at the end of the season has 2 losses. I'm going to tell you in second segment who I think makes the college football playoff. And this just in, I think LSU is in the SEC championship, but does not make the college football playoff because they will have 2 losses. So I don't know. Florida State's got a quarterback back, offensive weapons back in plethora, defense that occasionally shows up, ACC, which, hey, this just in, you suck as a conference. They can run the table. Clemson's there. I understand that. They got a huge gauntlet against LSU. I understand, but if they can go ahead and sneak up, they're in the conversation for me at minimum. At minimum. Again, not saying they're going to do it. Not saying they can do it. But man, you can't tell me that Florida State is a long shot. They're in a weaker conference, better quarterback play, better offense. So that's one contender. Second contender, it's Alabama. Y'all, Alabama's going to have 1 loss. I think it's to LSU. I think LSU loses to somebody else. Maybe A&M. Maybe they just absolutely hate themselves to A&M. Yeah, I'm going to call it right there. I think LSU beats Bama. I think they're in the SEC championship. I think they lose to Georgia in the SEC championship. Now they have 2 losses, and a 2-loss team is never making a 4-playoff system. Come back next year, LSU. You'll probably make it, but maybe not because you won't have the same roster. If it was 12 teams, yes. 4 teams, no. You can't have 2 losses and make that. It's a disgrace. Did you hear me, college football fan? Okay, good. I'm just making sure we all understand history here. I think Alabama has a good shot to have 1 loss and get into that because I think they're going to show out in a lot of other games. I think LSU beats them. And if that's the case, they got a great roster. They got a great team. They have cachet. They have national appeal. All the things that you look for. All the things you look for. Oh, y'all. it's a contender for sure. Ohio State, I think Ohio State is going to win their conference. I think they're going to run the table. I do not believe in Michigan. They're a contender. Ohio State's a contender. Michigan is a contender. If you want to talk about contenders, if we're just talking contenders, I'm going to give you segment 2, my 4 teams, but they are a contender, as well as LSU, as well as Clemson. Clemson has maybe one loss going to the ACC championship, and Florida State is going to have to contend with them. I think Clemson is absolutely a contender. Texas is, I hate saying that, but they are a contender. USC is a contender. Again, they're the one team for the Pac-12 that I would actually think about. And then lastly, look, you're gonna think I'm a fraud for saying this. Fickle, transfer quarterback, stout defense, stout offensive line, Wisconsin. If I were to pick a team, that's just my longest of long shots. I'm picking Wisconsin. I wouldn't put money, but they're the longest of long shots. That's what I mean. In the category of longest of long shots, I would take them above the other schools. We're going to come back after this. I'm going to talk about who I think the 4 teams are and if it's a natty or bust for Georgia, because this is in Georgia's one of the 4 next. But first, after these. And these are eBay Motors. eBay Motors is a place that you need to go. If you don't understand what eBay Motors, by the way, glad to have you here, 199. If you don't understand what eBay Motors are, eBay Motors is a fantastic place to get the right part, the right fit, the right price. eBay guarantee, only in America, only for U.S. customers. For the championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guarantee Fit, you can be sure that every single part fits right the first time. And just add your ride to My Garage and lock in. There's a little green, how you know that you're going to get the right part, the right fit. Green check to know it will fit. Money back guarantee. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. When you shop at eBay Motors, and with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. It's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right part, the right fit, the right price. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guarantee Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. All right, I told you that I was going to let you know who I think is going to be the top 4 teams in the college football playoff. And these are not my long shots. I gave you a list of contenders. It's a short list. I think there's 6, 7 teams maybe that could do it. I don't think 8 to 10. If you're taking flyers way down on the list, just help you. If you're taking a flyer on an A&M, just help you. Utah, good golly. Even Penn State. I don't think Franklin is the coach to do it. But here, I'm going to give you my 4 teams who I think are in the college football playoff. And then I'm going to tell you if it's a bust of a season if Georgia doesn't win the national championship. Let me start with this. Georgia will be the number 1 seed, will be number 1. We'll have a perfect season. We'll go into the SEC championship and we'll beat LSU. We will be reigning SEC champions. We'll be number 1. We will be heading in against to play number 4. I'll get to in a moment who I think that is. But Georgia is in the college football playoff. Surprise, surprise. I know. I understand. It's ludicrous. It's crazy. And yet here we are. Number 2, Alabama's making the college football playoff. Just prepare yourself now. Bama fan, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening to us. I'm glad you're hating on us. I'm glad you're making fun of us in the comments. Sincerely, I don't say that jokingly. I legitimately mean that. Thank you for being here. They're making the college football playoff. Number 3 team to make the college football playoff, The Ohio State University. I'll give you the credit for that I think Ohio State gets in. I think their quarterback situation gets figured out. I think Day does a thing with the offense. Their defense, I don't think, is as good as last year. I don't think they need to be. And while we're at it, let's talk why I think Michigan is not going to be in the college football playoff. One, it's cute to say that you have the best offensive line. And I say cute because you have been proven to come up with the greatest offensive line and then get blasted in the mouth by teams like Georgia, teams like Alabama, maybe not Ohio State. And you guys want to say you play, as Gus Johnson would say, yelling. Oh, sure, you guys want to say you play big old slobber knocker football. You get manhandled by SEC teams. Who plays the better defense? Who plays more physical when you say you're the best and you're physical and run and we know how to play in cold weather, and then you get absolutely boat raced by us? That should tell you something. Okay. Michigan's not going to do it. Here's why. Y'all telling me you believe in JJ? Y'all telling me that as a quarterback, not triple option running back, quarterback, you believe him, that when you play a team that can shut you down, make you one-dimensional, make you have to beat them by throwing the football. And Jim Harbaugh, admittedly, knows how to game plan a run game. I watch him with the Niners. I watch him with Michigan. He knows how to make a elaborate run game. It's fantastic, truth be told. You play a team that is able to figure out and shut you down, and you make JJ become a quarterback only. Oh no, it's bad news. Their defense lost a couple of players to the draft. Their offensive line may be good, but it's not the best in the nation. And their defense is worse. And JJ is coming back, and they have all these returning players. Here's what returning players can mean. I'm not saying it necessarily means to Michigan, but it can mean this. And I think it applies in certain instances to Michigan. You can have returning players that aren't good returning, and they're not good enough to go to the NFL. That's what it means. Henry To'o for Alabama came back. He wasn't good. He got drafted. He plays, I don't forget who he plays for, Texans or something like that. He's not good. He was graded exceptionally well. He's not good. He got exposed and shown and blue coverages and can't run with people. He came back. He was one of the returning people on the best roster ever compiled by Alabama that couldn't make the college football playoff. It's not always great. Michigan has a couple of people back. They have a couple of key positions back. They have running backs and offensive line and JJ. Okay, great. But your defense is worse and you have JJ. Need I say more? Please stop it with that. So I think Ohio State is in it. I think Alabama is in it. I think Georgia. I'm going chalk so far right now. But then my last team, I have Clemson. I think Florida State has a shot, but I think Clemson makes the college football playoff. I think we're back to just absolute blue bloods all the way through. I don't think there's a team that is outside that has a 2% chance to making it like TCU or 3% that TCU had and makes college football playoff. I think it is Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and I'm here for it. We're going to have one hoorah before we go to 12-team, watered down piece of crud playoff that makes conference, it makes everything meaningless. And we're just like NBA basketball at this point. Hey, I'm on record as saying I don't like it. Okay. So hate me. I don't care. Because you're still going to have these four teams getting buys and crushing Tulane. Okay. Good for you. But hey, we got to see a matchup we don't often see. We got to see Tulane against Alabama. Woohoo! Yay! As they get crushed. I think those are the four teams in. And let me tell you this. I'm going to come back loyal third segment listeners, the 199, by the way. Again, thank you, 199, for being here. I'm going to tell you why it is natty or bust and why Florida still sucks significantly. Daniel talked about the defense. I'm going to talk about a couple of guys on this team that are going to get us into the national championship and what that looks like and why I do think we will three-peat, but right after this. Like I said, welcome back to the 199. If you don't know what the 199 is, it is the 199 who are loyal third segment listeners, the club that is for people that love Locked On Bulldogs and Georgia Bulldogs. Go over to bonfire.com/store/the199. That is bonfire.com/store/the199 to get your merch. I speak Kerbinese. Here comes the Death March. We'll be wearing it all season long. We'll be putting them on. We'll be showing out. We'll be putting them on for game days. Get over there right now, loyal third segment listeners. And here's why it's natty or bust for Georgia. We have a better defense than we did last year. We have a possibly better offensive line than we did last year. Cohesively. We had probably the third or fourth best left tackle, probably fourth best left tackle we've had in recent memory. Probably maybe third if we're talking the last 15 years. We have a right tackle that is probably the best right tackle we've had in a decade. We have guards and a center who are the best we've had. I know Ben Cleveland lovers, he was a mauler. He was great, but not polished like these guys. Interior offensive line. Left tackle is a question. I think Green's going to lock it down. I think we're fine. We have running back. We have Deshaun. We have Branson. We have Andrew Paul. It sounds like Milton is still dealing with a hamstring injury, and if that doesn't get figured out, it's going to be a long, long rooting season for him. We're all in your corner, brother. Get healthy. Get right, please, because I want you to show out. We have wide receivers galore. We have a better wide receiver group than we've ever had as a group. Hear me, group than we've ever had at Georgia. George Pickens, AJ, all that. Yes. Huge tier talent, but as a collective, rah-rah, it's just incredible what we have. Ladd McConkey should be drafted no later than the third round. Hear me, NFL GM. If you draft Ladd McConkey later than the third round, you have only yourself to blame. Carson Beck sounds like showing out in camp. Sounds like making some throws. Sounds like going through progression. Sounds like has every talent, and now the head and the reads and the Mike Bobo system. And if you don't understand, Mike Bobo is coming for your head and coming for blood. You haven't been listening to him. Mike Bobo is a different man, and he is a changed man, and he is coming for your head, SEC. Mike Bobo is a fantastic hire. Come at me, anybody. And a defense that's better. Malachi Starks, Aguero. I love me some Starks, okay? Roquan Smith is my favorite dog ever. Not the best and not who I think is the best. My favorite dog ever. Aguero might be... He might be that dude. He might be that dude in the secondary. We have Lassiter, who is a dude. Like that guy. That guy's going, go ahead, get you some pay. He's going first round. He's not going first round. The whole entire system's whack. Interior defensive lineman, edge, Micah Williams. Oh, good golly. He may actually make J.J. McCarthy quit if J.J. makes the playoff. I think it is bust because we have the most talented defense, the second most talented defense the last 10 years. I think it's better than last year's. We have a quarterback who is talent-wise has a higher ceiling than Stetson, and Stetson showed out and balled out and made those deep throws and made clutch plays and did it when he needed to do. It's bust. It's bust or Natty, because we have all the pieces. We have Kirby. We have Bobo. We have Glenn. The band's back together, and it feels so good. We have 3 running backs that are studs, a fourth that is the best of them all, who, if his hamstring doesn't flare up, will be abjectly a powerhouse. Cohesive offensive line. Playmakers, ball hawks on the back end. Aguero is going to thump you. Starks is going to take from you. Lassiter is going to lock you down. JDJ is going to lead. Guys, if we don't win the Natty, it's a failed season. Because that's where we are. Because you can tell me, Georgia fan, don't become Alabama fan. Georgia fan, do not become Alabama fan. They are the worst. Alabama fan, you're the worst. Florida's the worst, but you're the second worst. Because all of a sudden you start saying, well, it was a good season. We won the SEC. We had 1 loss. We had 2. It was a good season. We had 3 guys drafted in the first round. I know we didn't win, but that's okay. You can't win them all. That's what they do when they're losers. They weren't doing that when they were winning. They were saying of everybody else, oh, you're losers. You got to win or go home. This is what's expected of us. Wear it like a badge of honor. It's the sweetest piece of bling in the entire world. Wear it. Own it. Love it. If we don't win, it's a bust. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. And I don't know how to tell you any other way. It's a bust if we can't get it done. But we will get it done. I truly do believe that. I think there is no way that we don't, unless there's injuries galore. Again, I said this before. I think Carson Beck can throw, if he's not himself, if he's not what we need him to be, if he's not Stetson Bennett, like, he can throw 18 times a game to keep people honest, and we can win with our running backs, our offensive line, and our defense. We can win the regular season. I don't think we can win the national championship if he doesn't show out. But if you're telling me, can we get to the college football playoff? Can we get SEC championship? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. 1,000%. If Carson Beck is not the guy we think he is. Because that's how talented this team is. That's how great Coach Kirby Smart is. It turns into a Kentucky game every single game, which is awful for my heart. We will have the Bottles and Buckets t-shirts over at the bonfire worn proudly. We'll have a bucket to catch projectile, and we'll have bottles to help us after we project into that bucket. But I think we're going to make that is, give me a line, give me a bet to make the college football playoff. I'm putting a ton of money on Georgia to do so. Not only odds on favorite, but I think we're going to be perfect, even if there's a couple hiccups. Defense has some injuries. That's no problem. We're just going to roll our deepest secondary that we've had in again, a decade out, the deepest. We're going to have linebackers for days, stacked upon stacked upon stacked upon stacked. We're going to be fine. I think injury we can weather. I think Carson Beck is the question. And if not, I think we have two other guys waiting in the wings. We have fail safes everywhere, y'all. I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all. This has been Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you think I'm arrogant for saying so, then let me know in the comments, which you will do anyway, Alabama and Florida fan. I love you. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thanks for being part of the 199 Loyal Third segment. We'll be back next week talking more Georgia Bulldogs all day, every day. Your team every day, Locked On Bulldogs. We'll see you guys then.